The Democrat Party is the anti-America party. I'll explain to you why in a second. Ricky Gervais hosted the Golden Globes last night and he left bodies on the floor. Finally, Lori Loughlin is getting ready for prison. We'll explain how. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Iran, Iraq, and oh boy, do we have news for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into all the blatant Democrat anti-Americanism we've seen over the past couple days, let's just give you a quick update on where we are. We all know we turned Soleimani into SpaghettiOs a few days ago. Iran had a massive funeral for him. People were weeping. The Ayatollah himself was crying. It's the end of the world. But since then, Iran has done a lot of threatening. They raised some red flag in their country that supposedly symbols that they're getting ready to go to war and, and there's going to be a severe retaliation. But then they did something else. Then they appealed to the international community saying what we did was a war crime. Does that sound like somebody who's getting ready to hit us hard? And then they went on CNN, because where else would you go to get your talking points out if you're Iran? Then they went on CNN and said, I'm not kidding, they said, well, we have to do a response, but then the United States should just leave it alone from there. Does that sound like somebody who's negotiating from a position of strength? We wiped out a major person in Iran's government, a terrorist piece of trash. Iran is now forced, because of pride and because of politics and things like that, they're forced to have some kind of response. Here's the problem for them. Their military spending is 2% of our military spending. They're in no position of strength anywhere. They don't have a navy really to speak of, especially not compared to ours. All they have is potential terror attacks, and even that, they're saying, well, we're only going to focus on military targets. Iran is going for the meekest, mildest revenge tour in the history of mankind, and it's glorious to watch. Couple all that with the fact that Iran apparently has lots of support inside of Iraq, a place where most Americans don't want us to remain anyway. Iraq's parliament voted to kick the United States out. They want us out of the country. It looks like, if this letter I'm looking at is authentic, it looks like we're actually going to oblige them and say, see ya, there'll be some helicopters in the sky on the way out the door. So let me see if I understand this right, if I'm an American citizen, and I very proudly am. We got to wipe a terrorist scumbag off the map. Thus far, there's been no response. All indications are if there is a response, it'll be a light response, and we get to remove American troops out of Iraq, out of harm's way, and bring people home. Which part of this didn't work out well for us? This sounds like the greatest thing in the history of mankind. Who in the world would have a problem with that? Well, of course, Democrats would have a problem with that. But before we get to them, let's go to Trump's statement because, look, Donald Trump is still flexing his muscle. People don't like that. Well, I should say leftists don't like that when you slaughter a high-ranking person in the Iranian government and then you say, oh, by the way, I'm going to kill more of you too. They think you could just enter a war meekly and mildly and, well, I mean, we're going to hit you, but not too hard. It'll be really gentle. No, Trump took to Twitter and said, quote, these media posts will serve as notification to the United States Congress that should Iran strike any U.S. person or target, the United States will quickly and fully strike back, and perhaps in a disproportionate manner. Such legal notice is not required, but it is given nevertheless. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to discuss that for a moment. Disproportionate. Let's focus on that part of this. You know that movie scene you've seen 1,000 times? Oh, I would never shoot first. Oh, I would never hit first. You get mothers telling their children that these days, too, because society seems to think that that's the acceptable thing. Now, don't ever throw the first punch. Let me explain something to you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're ever about to be in a physical confrontation, and I hope you're not, avoid that at all costs. But if you feel like a physical confrontation is inevitable in any case, whether you're fist fighting in the backyard or whether you're making war, hit first and hit hard. That's how you win battles, ladies and gentlemen. Hit first and hit hard. And you do exactly what Donald Trump said we would do. You don't say, okay, well, if you hurt one of ours, then we'll hurt one of yours because we want to be proportionate. No, you do exactly what Donald Trump has said over the past couple days. If you hurt one of ours, we already have 52 people in your government identified, and we'll plant a cruise missile in their cereal bowl in the morning should you hurt any American citizen. Now, you may not like that. It may make you uncomfortable, but Trump's right. See what I did there? But he is. You have to signal strength to countries like Iran, to countries like Iraq. Nations across the world only understand strength, so many of them. And when you get to dictatorships like Iran, that's all they get. People, I was in Iraq. Let me explain something to you. Many people, maybe not everyone, but many people there only understand the business end of a gun. They do. And we don't like to think like that. We like to think everything is a college campus. If we should talk it out, should we pass notes? Let's message each other on Instagram. Well, that's not the real world. That's not how things work out. Chuck Schumer's pretty huffy about things. Here's Chuck.
This president has made a mess of foreign policy. North Korea, they're much stronger than they were when he started. In Syria, he messed up. Every encounter he has with Putin, he loses. And so I am really worried, and that is why Congress must assert itself. I don't believe the president has authority to go to war in Iraq without congressional. You just heard Secretary Pompeo. He said they do. Well, I don't believe that, and I think Congress, and I will do everything I can to assert our authority. We do not need this president either bumbling or impulsively getting us into a major war.
Couple things on that. I cannot believe I'm about to say these words. Lord, forgive me for them. But in a way, Chuck Schumer's kind of right about needing congressional authority. At least that's how it used to be in the United States of America. That's how we were founded. That's not a Republican or Democrat thing. That's so the United States president can't just decide on a whim, hey, we're going to war with them. No, it should be voted on by Congress. And so should an actual war be necessary with Iran, we should have a congressional vote. Now, Donald Trump does not need a congressional vote to drone strike Soleimani. Why would he? As soon as they even attempted a congressional vote, all the Democrats who were rooting for Soleimani would actually send him a letter letting him know to go underground and keep himself safe. No, I'm actually not being hyperbolic. I'm not taking shots at them. I believe, and I think the media has basically confirmed this over the past few days, there are several people in the United States of America who are rooting for Iran over us. That's just where we are as a nation. You don't have to look far for it. The media, the AP, the Washington Post, they've written glowing obituaries. Obituaries? I don't know. I went to community college. That thing you write when somebody dies. They're talking about how wonderful the guy was. The guy slaughtered Americans. The guy slaughtered Iraqis. The guy slaughtered his own people. He is, by any account, a world-class piece of scum. But the media is so blinded by Republican hatred, so blinded by Trump hatred, that they can't get out of their own way. And this is why the Democrat Party has become the anti-America party. They really genuinely despise this country. If you don't believe me, picture this. What happened in the United States of America when Barack Obama ordered Navy SEAL Team 6 to go in and kill Osama bin Laden? What happened that night bin Laden was killed? Did you see any conservatives running to Twitter or Facebook or the news and talk about how Barack Obama really bungled this? This is a dangerous escalation. But guys, I'm just really not sure. No, we all raised a glass that night and said, good job, Mr. President. Good job, Navy SEALs. That piece of scum is gone. What have you seen in the days since that piece of garbage was killed? Well, I mean, this is a dangerous escalation. I mean, he's a leader. I mean, he was revered. He did help a lot of people. I heard he's nice to puppies. Two totally different parties, two totally different mentalities. Nancy Pelosi, she had a statement, thankfully written because press conferences haven't been her best friend recently. Quote, last week, the Trump administration conducted a provocative and disproportionate military airstrike targeting a high-level Iranian military officials. This action endangered our service members, diplomats, and others by risking a serious escalation of tensions with Iran. As members of Congress, our first responsibility is to keep the American people safe. For this reason, we are concerned that the administration took this action without the consultation of Congress and without respect for Congress's war powers granted to it by the Constitution. This week, the House will introduce and vote on the War Powers Resolution to limit the president's military actions regarding Iran. Again, I could support Nancy Pelosi's, let's get back to the Constitution thing if she wasn't cheering Barack Obama as he drone striked half the globe. None of these Democrats said a single thing when Barack Obama had Predator drones all over the world. Donald Trump kills one Iranian terrorist, and all of a sudden the world's coming to an end. Anyway, to talk about pulling out of Iran and other stuff, we're GunUniversity.com and Special Forces sniper, former Special Forces sniper, Ryan Cleckner joins us in just a moment. Hang on. Well, occasionally on the show, we like to bring on somebody who's killed people. So allow me to welcome in founder of GunUniversity.com and former Special Operations sniper, Ryan Cleckner. Ryan, before we get to everything else, we might as well address this letter that I'm reading. I know you're reading. Still trying to verify whether or not it's authentic, but it sure looks like we are pulling out of Iraq. I know at least part of Iraq's parliament voted that they don't want us there anymore. We're leaving. How does that make somebody like you feel?
Makes me happy. I think we've talked about this before, is we do not belong there. I am so glad we're leaving. But this is that weird dilemma where if you're ever in an auditorium and you have to turn around to shush somebody behind you and they tell you to turn back around and you're like, dang it, if I do it now, it looks like it's because they told me to do it. But I'm going to do it on my own anyway. That's the problem with Iraq right now. It's like, I'm not leaving because you told me to, Iran. I'm leaving because you guys clearly don't want our help. You're clearly not cooperating with us. You're asking us to leave. So you know what? Maybe you should get what you deserve.
I like it, and I love leaving too. Look, goodbye, good riddance to Iraq. Here's my only concern about it. I love that we just absolutely flamed Soleimani on the way out, and now we're saying goodbye. But we're already hearing the chatter about the rise of ISIS again. The coalition forces are pulling back. We're not fighting against ISIS. I don't want to pull out of Iraq, have ISIS rise up again, and then have them ask us to come back. It's not that I care about what happens in Iraq anymore. I do not. I'm not one of these people who preaches about worrying about the rise of ISIS all the time. I just don't want us to return when they ask us to, because they're going to ask us to.
Well, I think whether we should be concerned or not, if we leave, there is a chance we could have a bolder, stronger enemy when we leave. But here's the problem. We've been there for so many years. Can we convince ourselves that staying there another 10 years is going to make things better? No, they hated us 40 years ago. We're talking Iran. They still hate us. So if they're going to hate us no matter what, if there's a chance of terrorism and anti-American sentiment no matter what, might as well, let's be home. Let's take care of our people. Let's get our resources in order and focus on our defense and maybe let Iraq sort out their problems.
Before we get back to Iran, should we be worried about ISIS? Let's say we yank out of there. Let's say ISIS rises up again. They clearly are always going to have some level of support in that part of the world. And obviously they have designs. We know they've hit us here at home in places like Orlando. Should we be worried about them rising again, or are they just nothing now?
You kind of break up a great point in your question, in that whether they rise again or not, they still hate us. They're still going to try and make attacks against us. So maybe them rising isn't that big of a deal. Maybe it's a deal because we give them the attention that they want.
Okay, Iran. Let's say we leave, and again, this is a guess. We don't know we're leaving yet, but let's say we leave. Clearly, Iraq is going to become, at some point, kind of a vassal state to Iran. Is that a radical statement?
No, it's not radical at all. And it goes back to what I'm saying, though, is us staying there isn't helping anything. Look at the condition of things right now. So if us staying isn't helping, then why does it matter if we leave?
It's a Shia versus Sunni thing, which I know a lot of Americans don't like to bother with that. They just like to, they're all Muslims or something like that. Well, that's not, I mean, there's a big Shia versus Sunni divide. Even some of the terrorist groups hate each other because these guys are Shia, these guys are Sunni. That's just the way it works over there. Well, half of Iraq, I mean, it's probably less than half, but half of Iraq are Sunni. The Shias want to join with Iran. What does that mean for the Sunnis in Iraq? Are we talking something like genocide if we yank out?
Possibly. Absolutely. Possibly. But then again, if we stay, Jesse, are we going to be able to solve it? Are we going to be able to stop it without getting in a full-scale protracted war?
No, well, look, I think we've redefined protracted war between Iraq and Afghanistan. I have no idea
Amen.
what we're even doing. I have
Amen.
no idea what we're doing in either of those things. And the sad part is, and this is the part that bothers me, and I know for a fact you've seen this too, when you talk to the guys on the ground, and I don't mean some guys sitting in the air conditioning, I'm talking people who actually leave the wire, they don't know what they're doing. Now, I see this a lot more in Afghanistan with my guys I talk to over there. They don't know, they can't define the mission for you. So the mission just becomes, well, I'm trying to survive the day. Well, that's
Correct.
That's not a mission.
You're absolutely right. It's not worth losing American lives over. So that's what I mean is at least let's come back and refit and consolidate our efforts over here and try and take care of our country first.
What do you think Iran has the capability of doing? I understand their military spending's 2% of ours. They're not a conventional military. Look, the Iranians aren't going to land on the South Carolina coast and start invading any moment now. It's just not going to happen. What
Correct.
can they do to hurt us?
Great question. I think what they can do to hurt us is something that you alluded to before we even jumped on here is the American public opinion. I don't think Iran as a military strength is much for us to be concerned about, honestly. Any strength they do have, we can thank the Obama administration for giving them the billions of dollars to get a head start on a whole lot of things. But I think they can hurt us politically. It's sad to say, but right now I hear many people today. I had conversations with people I really respect, close friends, that were just apoplectic about Trump's response. And I think it comes down to a fundamental difference in how conservatives and liberals deal with problems in life. I'm trying to say this in the most uninsulting way possible. I analogize it to being with a bully. I have some of my liberal friends, yes, I have some, are saying, oh no, you punched the bully in the nose. He's really going to beat you up at the bike racks after school. Well, guys, you can't put up with bullies like this. You got to fight back. And if they're going to try and mess with you, they're going to try and mess with you. If Iran wanted to hurt us, they would have done it over the last 40 years, and they're still going to want to try and do it. At the very least, we should stand up for ourselves and keep the bully away from us.
I also try to keep some liberals in my life in case I ever try to score drugs one day. But also, I don't know how we got to this point, and I'm not going to sit here and act like this is the only time this has ever happened in history. I've seen enough, I've read enough about the Vietnam War, even though I'm not that old, and what happened on the home front. But I see more and more it being normalized within the media, within the Democrat Party, more than just sympathizing with the enemy. I mean, Ryan, I look at some of these headlines, man, flat out cheering for him? Is that too extreme?
It's been a joke that we've had before that Trump derangement syndrome can get the liberals that are anti-Trump to cheer for anything that Trump doesn't. And he's either just playing masterful chess here, that he's actually got them cheering for terrorists and cheering for Iran, but I don't know what to think other than they hate that man so much that it looks like they're willing to argue anti-American interests.
I will tell you, I did enjoy Nancy Pelosi talking about passing a War Powers Resolution Act through Congress so Donald Trump can't drone anyone else when she sat there for 8 years with Barack Obama droning half the planet and never said a word.
Didn't he have 26,000 bombs in 1 year under Barack Obama? I mean, I don't like whataboutism. I bet you hate it just as much as I do, going, well, what about this guy? But it's appropriate here. How in the world are we having somebody who has America as his first interest and they're mad at that? This should be something that we're praising him for, not trying to hinder him for doing.
I want you to explain something to me, or I should say, break it down as best you can. People talk all the time about, the military-industrial complex and the war machine and things like that. And I have my own version of how I explain that to people. But when you have someone like Donald Trump, who's clearly more of a non-interventionist, which is more where I lean now. Obviously, you can't be one of these give peace a chance things, because that doesn't always work either. You can't be all universal. But let's say you're a non-interventionist like Donald Trump. But it seems like it's always pulling teeth for him to get troops home, to get troops out of anywhere. My goodness, he moved 1,000 troops to the side in Syria, and people freaked out and used words like genocide.
That's what I mean. They do anything to argue against Trump. They argue for war. Yeah.
Yeah, but even the generals, all the bureaucrats, everybody, explain to me what it is. Why are people so committed to us staying everywhere forever?
They're not. They don't have the answer. And so I'm hesitating here because I don't want to make an insult for something. But it's like, I don't know if you have kids, Jesse, but I have kids. And it's sometimes my kids, when I want to do something, they just resist everything I want to do. They don't have a solution other than no. So I say, all right, I'm going to make the tough decision, and we're going to pull out of Iraq. They're going to scream no. All right, I'm going to make the tough decision, and I'm going to strike back because they keep antagonizing and killing Americans. They're going to say no. I just think they need to get out of the way, let some real leadership happen, and then we can see what happens after that.
Why'd you go special operations? I mean, obviously people, it needs no introduction because people have seen enough movies and read enough books, but these guys are, I mean, the best of the best. You guys do absurd things, stuff that other people can't survive. Who would agree to do that? Who would volunteer to do that? Why?
It takes a young, motivated person to do it. I don't know if me today would do the same thing. I mean, we have those guys over there now. We have some amazing Marines over there that just got deployed to protect the embassy at 82nd Airborne. And my alma mater, 1st Ranger Battalion, has actually been activated and deployed right now over to Iraq to do this. I think it's because I wanted to prove it to myself that I could do something. And then once you get caught up in the moment, that you just want to keep being better and better. I enjoyed it, but it didn't last very long, and I'm glad it didn't. I was able to leave while I still had all my limbs, and I still had my life, and go back to college and do other things. So it was a great moment, but I'm glad it's over too.
Plus, I mean, if you really wanted to test yourself, you could have joined the Marines.
That's true. That's true. I didn't have it in me.
Ryan Cleckner, founder of GunUniversity.com, former Spec Ops sniper. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, Jesse.
Be good. Well, look, people, we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens with this letter, whether this is real. Even if we are leaving Iraq, don't think you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and look around and all the troops are back. Look, the airports are full of them. These kind of things take time, and it's going to get ugly. It's going to get hard. When you have a divorce, which is what it's going to be when we pull out of Iraq, when we're so entrenched there between embassies and airports and all these other things, it's not going to be a fast process. So we're going to see how things go. We'll give you all the best analysis on this show. Why? Because I'm here. All right, we got a lot more for you. Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, we can all gather around the fire and be safe in the knowledge that we enjoy making fun of Hollywood people. And you know what? We should make fun of Hollywood people. One, because most of them are really stupid. I mean, they just are. Anthony Hopkins came out and said that himself a few weeks ago. He said, you know why I don't talk about politics or anything? Because I don't know what I'm talking about, and none of these idiots know what they're talking about. But we have this bizarre thing in American society where we hold our actors up. We hold them up as you know, some kind of beacon of light. They're always out there in the public eye voicing their opinion. You know why they're voicing their opinion? Because for some reason, people tell them their opinion actually matters. Did you know that in ancient Roman society, they loved the theater? They loved going to plays. But actors were considered second-class citizens. The Romans would go to the plays, they'd enjoy the plays, and then as soon as the play was over, they would leave. There was no gathering around for autographs, snapping an ancient Roman selfie, whatever that version of that was. No, they went, saw the play, and they moved on. It was actually considered a scandal if any members of the royal family or high class were seen even speaking with an actor. Why? Because actors are morons. It just takes a different kind of skill set to be an actor. I'm fine. I mean, look, that's a good life. Make your $20 million a year and live on your yacht. And I mean, all that's fine. But don't ask us to rely on your politics. What's more, it's gotten even worse in this day and age, as sometimes Hollywood can be relied on to be counterculture, at least in the past. But in this day and age, they all say the same thing. Nobody bravely gets up there at the Golden Globes or the Oscars and talks about the need to secure the border, the need to protect unborn life, cut taxes, lower regulations. They all get up there and give the same lefty lines about everything, and the crowd praises them, and they raise their hands up like they're a conquering hero. Ah, look at me. I'll get back to my vegan steak. That's what they all do, every one of them. So we've elevated them, and now we have an entire Hollywood industry completely dedicated to pushing leftist propaganda. And then they get up at award shows and continue to lecture normal, everyday people. Well, there's a comedian who needs no introduction from me. His name is Ricky Gervais, and he is irreverent. No, he's not some card-carrying conservative. His stand-up act, no matter who you are, if you're the thin-skinned type, will offend you. He spends half his time making fun of people on the right, making fun of Christians, making fun of all kinds of things. But he gives absolutely no quarter to the absolute hypocrites in Hollywood, to these people who get up there and morally preen and lecture everybody else about how could you use a single-use water bottle, climate change, make sure you murder your baby. Well, Ricky Gervais has no time for that. So let me tell you what, allow us to begin, and this may not be for children's eyes because it got ugly out there. He opened up making fun of Felicity Huffman, who's in prison.
But you all look lovely, all dolled up. You came here in your limos. I came here in a limo tonight, and the license plate was made by Felicity Huffman. So, no.
Ooh. Oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a nice opening salvo. I did enjoy the limo part. We'll get back to that in a minute. But one thing we never seem to talk about anymore, I think because we just assume there is no justice in this world, Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, the billionaire, pedophile, with the really creepy house with Bill Clinton paintings, the man who ran what appears to be some kind of international pedophilia ring that preyed on underage girls. He then, while in custody, killed himself after both cameras that could observe his cell malfunctioned. That doesn't seem real, right? And everybody just kind of moved on. This is a man who committed horrible crimes, who had dirt on apparently some very, very powerful people. Cameras went out, he killed himself. Well, Ricky Gervais apparently isn't letting it go.
You could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer. And it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
See, some of the best criticism out there is satire, biting satire like that. That your friend line, yeah, they were laughing, but there were some people severely uncomfortable in that room. It's no secret. I mean, we've had enough stories have come out about the horrible depravity that goes on in Hollywood. And I'm not just talking about some actor having an affair somewhere. I'm talking about predators, powerful people who they prey on the weak. They prey on runaways. They prey on the underage. And if you think Jeffrey Epstein didn't have some very, very, very powerful Hollywood people on those planes with him to go do his disgusting excursions, you've got another thing coming. Ricky Gervais knows there are some powerful people in that room. The actors and actresses in the crowd know there are some powerful people in that room. And maybe the most uncomfortable fact of all, they know who they are. They know the names. Nobody says anything. If you think Jeffrey Epstein was the last powerful man on earth who regularly preys on the weak, you got another thing coming. There are several out there doing it as we speak, and nobody talks about it. Well, you have all these companies out there like Apple, like Amazon. Virtually all the major corporations will take some time out of their day to lecture you, to lecture me about sustainability, compassion. We need to be more tolerant leftists. Well, he kind of went after them too.
Apple roared into the TV game with a morning show. A superb drama, yeah. A superb drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China. So, well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
He's right. He's right. And that's why it bothered them so much. There's articles from the LA Times, a million different publications out today criticizing him for going after the Hollywood people. Because if there's one thing powerful, obnoxious actors don't like, it's being told the truth. Look, nobody likes to be told you're not that important. But people who think they're important really don't like to be told you're not that important. Your opinion doesn't matter. But he couldn't stop them. They, of course, had to go up and talk about climate change and how wonderful abortion is and every other sick freaking thing they do out there. Well, let's also not forget that Harvey Weinstein was the Hollywood power player for a long time. Apparently abused women for a long time. And nobody said anything.
It's already... Right, last one, come on guys. Our next presenter starred in Netflix's Bird Box, a movie where people survive by acting like they don't see a thing. Sort of like working for Harvey Weinstein. You did it, I didn't, you did it.
You could see, you could hear the cringing. Oh, haha, it's kind of funny though, but I think it's kind of true too. That's right. Well, look, it is Hollywood, and so they're tolerant and they're woke. And remember, leftists are all the party of compassion, except for apparently George Lopez, who took to Instagram. You see, Iran put out a bounty on Donald Trump's head. I think it was $80 million or $80 billion. It doesn't matter. They don't have the money now that Barack Obama's not in office sending American dollars. George Lopez, in response to Iran's assassination offer, said, and I quote, "We'll do it for half." That's a threat against the President of the United States of America's life. So I obviously don't think George Lopez is any kind of a genius, but that's a crime. That's actually a felony. And not that anyone in power is ever held accountable in this country, but that should not only warrant a visit from the Secret Service, that should probably mean jail time. We'll be back in a second. Hang on. Well, if there's one thing that's always bothered me, it's something I go off on all the time on the show. It's how powerful people, rich, powerful people, really, they live above the law. They're never held to the same standard that you and I are. And I shouldn't complain about that as much because you know what? That's the history of the world. Poor people get sent to prison, rich people get a little fine, and they go eat grapes somewhere. Unless you're one of these rich, powerful people who decided to pull some scam stuff and get your kid into college on fake athletic scholarships. And Lori Loughlin was one of these Hollywood stars that got caught up in this whole thing. And I find this to be one of the funniest, most bizarre things I've ever heard. Apparently, Lori Loughlin is training to go to prison. And I mean, as in prison fighting training. Look, let's understand something here. Lori Loughlin is not going to Attica, okay? She's not going to San Quentin. Lori Loughlin is a celebrity who's probably going to be in jail for about 5 minutes at some country club where she might get some overcooked steak in between her spa appointments. I really don't think she needs to spend too much time rolling around on the mat doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and learning how to shiv somebody in the neck. But this is what Hollywood people are. This is what Hollywood people do. They're nuts. They're absolutely nuts. So only a Hollywood actress would find out she's going to jail and decide she needs to take self-defense classes. And oh, by the way, I know it's an old story, but while I'm on the subject, allow me just to go off on it for a moment. Rich, powerful people, they buy their way into college. And they pay for their kids to get into college. This was always supposed to be something I was supposed to care about. I was supposed to be outraged that Lori Loughlin told a lie about something to get her kid into college. Why do I care? What do you think happens when you go to a college and you see Lori Loughlin Hall, Lori Loughlin Athletic Center, or whatever rich, powerful person? Do you think they do that just out of the goodness of their heart? They do that to buy a legacy, to buy prestige, and to make sure when they pick up the telephone and get the dean on the phone and say, hey, Dean, remember that Lori Loughlin hall I built? Yeah, I'd really like my kid to get into school. The kid gets into school. I just don't understand why I'm ever supposed to really care that much about this story. The history of the American university system, of every university system really, is rich, famous people writing big fat checks, whether they be legal checks or otherwise, for favors. So goes the world. We got a lot more for you tomorrow. You'll enjoy it. Talk to you then.